being Bill right now.
Hey.
What's that, Dylan?
Hey everyone, this is Dylan with OptiCall. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar about getting back to growth strategies to reopen your aesthetics and plastic surgery practice. We're excited to have an all-star lineup here today. If you guys aren't familiar with OptiCall, we've been in the business since 2002. We specialize in converting elective medical leads into consultations. We do that both over the phone and through web leads, and we've got a variety of different options where we can help with overflow, after-hours support, and we can handle media response. But we're not really here to sell anything. We really just wanted to kind of come together to help the industry out. So the idea here, actually, one second, I'm going to take off some of the cameras until you guys are up on your presentation. And
Dylan, I'm seeing your screen. I just see your screen. I don't see the anything other than one of your screens with the mountain in the background.
Oh, you don't? Oh, thanks for letting me know. Shoot. Okay.
There we go.
I had the wrong screen up. So, and I'm going to, Connor and Tommy, if you don't mind turning your cam off for just a second, we'll get to you guys here shortly. So, yeah, as I was starting to say, we're not really here to sell anything. We just wanted to get everybody together. Kind of started out as a virtual happy hour among some of our marketing partners, just kind of brainstorming ideas. The original idea I had was to do a pitch, like let each company do their pitch and let the audience vote on it. But the feedback that we got from the crew was like, now's not really the time to be selling. So similar to the story I saw in the Denver News about a bunch of cleaning companies that had all come together during COVID, and they were actually helping support one another through this pandemic. So I thought that was kind of cool. So we really appreciate everybody coming together to kind of help out through this, competitive companies that are all here to kind of share some thought leadership on ways to get your practice relaunched successfully. As far as the topics that we're going to be touching on today, we're going to talk about the State of the Union, kind of the mindset. Bill's going to cover that. We're going to talk about the challenges that practices are facing. That's going to be Sam from Incredible Marketing. Opportunities through this, that's going to be Conor Dixon from Relevant Labs and Keith Humes from Rosemont Media. We're going to talk about an action plan. That's Matt Arndt from Turbo Medical Marketing and Tom Culture from Crystal Clear Digital Marketing. And we're also going to talk about internal process with Karen Zupko here. She's a consultant in the industry. And we're also going to have Dr. Mulholland joining us to kind of give his perspective on what he's seeing firsthand. So we're excited to have such a great lineup here today. And I'm going to introduce Bill Mercier. He's our CEO and founder. He started this business kind of on accident. How many years ago, Bill? 2002, 18 years ago?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Bill's going to talk a little bit about the State of the Union, the different stages of the pandemic. And we also have one poll to share. We'll try not to belabor too much on that. So I'll go ahead and launch that now, Bill. And while people are chiming in, here we go. And this is a multiple choice poll, so you can pick multiple options. We just kind of want to get a pulse on what you guys are seeing at your practice. So the options are lead volume is up from January to mid-March, from, well, this year compared to last year, and then kind of what's happened since the lockdown with lead volume, and whether you've increased or decreased marketing budget, and if you had a plan, if you've still been able to operate virtually and handle calls and leads remotely. We've seen practices kind of looks as if they've just gone dark and dormant through this process. So just want to see what's happening with you guys. And Bill, can you see the poll up on your side?
Yeah, I can see the poll up.
Okay. I'll go ahead and launch these results. So I'll just read it out in case some of you guys are on audio only. So 29% said lead volume was up from the same time from January to mid-March this year compared to last year. That's a bit lower than what I was expecting, because we did a presentation of refractive, and most practices were saying their volume was up from last year. And then not surprisingly, most people have seen a decrease 61% since April, or from mid-March to April. And then about 50% of people have decreased marketing budget since the COVID-19 hit. 5% have increased. That's great to hear that there's some people out there doing that. And 76% of you said that you've been able to operate virtually and handle phone calls. That's good to hear. Let's see, hide this result. And I'm actually going to take my screen off here, because the idea was, and as far as the timeline, all the speakers have 5 minutes. You might see me hold up a banana. That means it's time for them to wrap it up. And we've allocated 10 minutes for Dr. Mulholland, just to give you guys an expectation on how long this is going to last. And we really want to get to the virtual roundtable discussion. We've already got a lot of questions that have come in on the registration. So we think that's where you guys might find the most value. So we'll do our best to get to that quickly. Without further ado, Bill, would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, I appreciate the introduction, and definitely appreciate everybody getting on the webinar today. We did this webinar for one of our other industries last week in ophthalmology. We take a lot of phone calls around the LASIK procedure and elective procedures in ophthalmology. And basically, as Dylan had said, it started as a virtual happy hour, and we were just got on a web meeting like this with a bunch of our friends that do marketing in the refractive industry. And we're talking about what's going on and what's happened with businesses. And there's no doubt that everybody's business that's on this webinar has probably had an impact, been impacted by the COVID-19. And us included. It's interesting because over the last year and a half, as a contact center, we decided to start to allow our team to work remotely. So when this happened, we had been up to about 70% of our team working remotely. And so we didn't really think that we would have an impact, or not much of one, because it would be very easy for us to move the remaining 30% to work out of their homes. But what ended up happening was, as we know, practices were forced to close. And so one by one, we started having practices go on pause. And, you know, in the beginning, it was kind of frustrating, and nobody knew how long this was going to take. And so one of the early webinars that we were on had these stages set up as to what people are going to be going through to get back to that, what we're going to consider the new normal. And I thought it would be helpful to talk about those stages on this webinar as well, because I know that I went through them. And the very first one was denial. And as this was starting to become more serious on the news, before we had all these lockdowns, I remember having a conversation with my wife and saying, hey, don't worry about this. This is going to be okay. You know, this is not going to be anything like what happened back in 2008 with the mortgage crisis and everything, and people losing their homes. And boy, was I wrong. You know, went from that stage, really denial, to the next stage very quickly, which is the panic stage. Oh crap, what do we do? How do we backpedal fast enough? And I'm sure that everybody on the phone can attest to having to lay off really good employees and call them. And I remember, you know, we're so passionate about what we do and so passionate about our employees. I'm on the phone crying as I'm telling people that we have to lay them off. And they're consoling me, telling me that it's okay, they understand. And then after that all happened and the dust settled a little bit, we went into the stage where it's really more about boredom. That what do we do? We don't know what to do. The phone calls aren't coming in. We can't do our regular jobs. And, you know, in this stage, I remember talking to some doctors, and one of the most frustrating things for me was that a lot of our practices had closed all of a sudden, and some of them had acted like they had gone out of business. and that phones weren't being answered properly, or they were letting them go into voicemail, and patients couldn't get in touch with anybody. And it was pretty challenging to talk to these doctors that are getting up at 10 in the morning and not shaving and still in their PJs. And, you know, for me, I felt like I needed to get up every morning just like I did when I went to work every day at the same time and work the same way. But we go from that boredom stage to where, you know, we have the PPP loans, everybody's putting in applications, that's giving us hope. And, you know, in that hope stage, we're looking forward to what is going to be the new normal. But I'm going to introduce one other stage that was not in the part of this original presentation that we had seen these stages on, and that's impatience or anger or whatever you want to call it. And I know it's not me because I've talked to other business owners, and maybe you can attest to this if you think about it. We go from that position where we're hopeful, and then what ends up happening is things aren't happening as fast as we want them to, and things are slowing down, and we have no clue when things are really going to open up, and we start getting angry about the situation and walking by our TVs. I've walked by my TV, I hear something about the virus, and I push, the power button. So those are really the stages that we've gone through. And so as we are moving towards that new normal, we wanted to put together a bunch of guys and gals in this industry that can help with getting us to that position. And so I have the opportunity to introduce the next speaker, who's going to talk about the challenges that we face. And so for those of you who don't know Sam Peak, he's the founder and CEO of Incredible Marketing. And they do business with over 1,000 clients across 20 countries. I mean, it's a tremendous business to be in. And it's a business that gets a lot of information and that has the ability to analyze that information and give feedback. And as we were going through the topics on this, I think Sam did a really good job at raising some great questions. And so I'd like to introduce Sam and talk about the challenges that we face now.
Hey everyone, can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Awesome. Hey, so thank you so much for having me on this. It's a really, really big deal to be a part of so many great speakers today, be a part of this panel. And, you know, I'm really glad to interact with you guys and always be able to provide some help. And, you know, I think it's really interesting that you guys chose me for the challenges section. You know, I was talking about that with some people over here at the Incrediplex, and we're in the studio right now. And they said, that kind of sounds a little bit like controversies. And that sounds like that's going to be right up your alley. And I was like, okay, now I know why they assigned this to me. But, you know, it's always two sides to every story, right? The challenges and the opportunities. And although a lot of us are trying to keep our eye kind of on that silver lining, we have to be real about stuff. And we have to really think about, what do we have going on? What are the challenges that are in front of us right now, and how do we deal with them? And we have to deal with these even if the answers aren't going to be great. So with that, let's kind of get right into it. And I've gone through this process by looking at some of the questions that people have sent over. When you registered for this, it was giving you an opportunity to ask some questions, and I folded those a little bit into this presentation because I want to be able to answer and again educate as much as I know about what's going on and how to make it through it successfully while still addressing some of those challenges. And so the biggest one seems to be, you know, how do I market my practice while still trying to balance cash flow, right? And that's something that every business owner is dealing with, whether that's my business, whether that's OptiCall, whether that is your practice, if you're doing non-surgical or surgical or whatever the case is. And this is kind of an unprecedented time for us, and we have to make sure that we make the right trade-offs. And we've seen with our clients, just kind of in general, whether that's in North America or across internationally, the numbers are about the same. You have about 40% of clients that have pulled back a portion of their marketing services. So whether they're dealing with saying we're not going to do so much in social media, or we're not going to run ads right now, maybe we're not going to do this or update our site, whatever it is, about 40% of the clients that we've been dealing with have adjusted their services downward in some degree. We have about 10% that have kind of paused everything and just said, you know, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know what the future looks like. Everything's uncertain, and I just kind of have to hit that pause button right now. And then you have about 10% of our clients that have just said, you know what, we're going to ramp up. We see this as an opportunity, and we want to take over market share and kind of have a lion's share when we make it through to the other side. And then that remaining kind of 40% haven't really done anything. They've just kind of been steadfast and continued on with the course. And as I was thinking about this and how to answer this question, how do you market yourself while trying to balance cash flow? I was thinking about me going out just the other night, picked up some food for the family, did the whole, takeaway thing. I went to an Ethiopian restaurant, and I was so surprised. A guy that I've known for a really long time, and he's really gruff, really upset. And I was kind of asking him, I was like, what's wrong? You're short on the phone and you don't seem too happy. He's like, I've just got to do everything. I've got to pick up the phone and I'm cooking all the food and I feel like I'm doing this all by myself. And it kind of occurred to me, for a lot of us, those that are in the kind of more mature practice phase of where we're at right now, this is very similar to a situation he's even in, which is you need to kind of go back to being a startup. And as that applies to your marketing as well. Typically, us in the marketing industry, we'll look at a practice and kind of analyze you and put you into one of like 5 phases or 5 categories, from startup to a super advanced practice that, from a marketing perspective is doing all that they should. And I think that unfortunately, this challenge has brought up the fact that how do I balance this cash flow? You kind of have to roll some things back. You have to roll up your own sleeves, kind of like this Ethiopian guy was having to do at his restaurant, and you're going to have to proverbially pick up your phone. You have to start doing some of the things that historically you had support. You had people, you had services, you had marketing efforts. You have to start doing that if you want to be able to reduce some of those costs and really, get the return that you're expecting. So focus your marketing on the things that you have the ability to control. So this is your time to really address your before and afters. This is the time for you to go after testimonials. If you don't have a service or if you suspended that service, this is the time for you to go out there and get that done. This is the time for you to review your own content if you don't have someone else producing it for you. This is the time for you to sit down and write that content. And these are ways in which you can address some of that cash flow and really still have that marketing impact. Just make sure that the technical stuff, the thing you really can't address, the stuff you really can't do, that has to be something that at the end of the day, you're going to have to outsource or just put a pause on. But the things that you can control, you need to dedicate yourself to doing that. And I said one of the biggest formulas, and this ties into another question, is not only, what's the best ROI, which is something your marketing company should always be going over with you. But now I would tie that into something I call an exponential diminished return on that investment. So you have to categorize and list things out and say, look, if I cut this off, I will be able to step it back up and be able to ramp it back up when I need to, such as maybe pay-per-click or social media marketing ads. But something that you cut off that might really impact you down the road and will be a significant hurdle for you to overcome, something like SEO if you stop that, or not making updates to your website, for example. You have to list those out in priority so that you don't ignore the things that are going to have a significant impact on you much further down the road. So really focusing your marketing on those things, I think, is going to help you. And then I wanted to move on to one of the second things that I thought was really important. How do I balance social distancing in a busy practice and kind of get things back to normal? Unfortunately, the simple answer is you don't. You're going to have less patients and you're going to make less money. That's just what it's going to come down to for the time being, because you're not going to be able to stack people in as much as you did before. And you're not going to be able to have some of the efficiencies. You have to take other protocols in order for those patients that are coming in to feel safe and secure, and also to cover your own self during this time. So you need to understand that probably for the rest of 2020, you're going to have a new normal. And a lot of people have talked about that, and I don't really love that buzz, but we're going to use that for right now. And as you think about that, understand that this, again, also presents an opportunity with you understanding your capacity versus allocation. And this is something I spend a lot of time teaching to practices. Your capacity is how much can you handle in terms of volume versus your allocation. Where are you spending your time? So make sure you're spending your time on the things that are most profitable and really get that specific slice of capacity to 100% and pull away from the things, if you do have to see less patients, that really aren't making you money. And that's going to help you in the long run. And last but not least, to that point, you have to be able to implement scarcity. So if you have less slots, less time, you have to see less patients, broadcast that. Let people know that it is hard to come see you. Let people know that you are booked out for a certain while. I think that using that scarcity model is going to certainly help you. And it's a way to market and to be able to use social distancing and the fact that you're seeing less people as a way to bring more people in. And then last but not least, I know I'm running a little bit over. I only have about 30 seconds and I'll try and make this one. This is the biggest point of all of them and the kind of the challenge that we face. What does the future look like? Now, I don't know how I'm going to answer that in 30 seconds. And some would say, and I would probably agree with them, that I'm not even qualified to answer that. I'm not an economist, and we're doing our best from a marketing perspective. But there's some good news coming, and some of the other panelists are going to talk about that here soon. But one thing is absolutely clear, and we need to talk about this, and this is going to be, unfortunate, but there's a current backlog of patients that you have. And those backlog of patients are going to come through. Things are going to feel really good. You're going to be busy from the date which you open, which is probably in a week or 2 weeks or by the end of the month, for a period of a month or 2 or even 3. But then things are going to slow down. And you are going to see that once you've cleared up that backlog, we're predicting that about 15%, and that's what the industry says, is reducing in terms of the amount of people and patients that are available and the amount of services. So you're going to start feeling that in late September, early October, into November, possibly even into the holidays. So if you don't take this influx that's coming in now and cross-subsidize marketing efforts to make sure that you are busy down the road, the real impact, besides what you feel right now, will be felt probably at the end of Q3 into Q4 of this year. And that is probably definitely coming. And again, no one knows about a second wave or what's really happening down the road with this. Yeah. But we really need to make sure that you guys understand that it's going to feel really, really great with being booked out now, but that's not going to last forever. I appreciate your guys' time. Now we're going to move on to the positive stuff. And then, of course, there's a series of Q&As here at the end. So thanks, Dylan. Kind of back to you.
Yeah, I like your point about the scarcity. That's a great suggestion in terms of like how to keep schedules full. Mm-hmm. So Conor Dixon is up next. He's with Relevant Labs. He's a longtime friend and does marketing both in aesthetics, other areas of elective medical like refractive, and he's going to talk a little bit about opportunities here.
Awesome, thanks, Dylan. Yeah, so my name's Conor Dixon. I'm the founder of Relevant Lab. We're a marketing consultancy that specializes in elective medical across industries, aesthetics, plastics, ophthalmology, dermatology, so on and so forth. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about opportunity, kind of from the global perspective, and I won't take a whole bunch of time to go through all this, but really it's just dovetailing on a lot of the stuff that Sam just talked about. And the big question that I think a lot of practices have are, should we be marketing ourselves right now? Just in general, should we be advertising, right? A lot of you guys have, as you said in the poll, reduced your marketing budget, pulled back. But the reality is, yes, you should. Unequivocally, you guys should be advertising right now. There's a couple reasons why. One, like Sam talked about, being the pipeline. But a bigger reason is just because there's never been a better opportunity from an attention span and affordability factor that we should be advertising right now. And so, I think practices in general think of marketing as kind of like a necessary evil expense. And so they don't really think about it as an investment. And so it's part of the reason why it's one of the first things that gets retracted or gets cut when we're in a period of retraction like we are right now. But I think that you need to be looking at an investment, especially right now in this time period, because, like Sam said, don't be fooled because you have this backlog of patients. That's going to run out. And so it's the efforts that you do right now in May and in June and in July that is going to pay dividends August, September, and October down the road, regardless of what the new normal looks like. But the biggest opportunity is that right now, people are in the boredom stage, like Bill said. And even though they're not spending money, people are researching. And so there's never been another time like this where we actually have the opportunity to grab the attention of people in our marketplace. We have the eyes and ears of our prospects. And they are more acceptable to our messaging and more attentive and are going to pay more attention to our messaging than any time ever before. And additionally, because less people are advertising across the board, advertising opportunities are more affordable than ever if you're capable of putting in the investment. And so basically, it means that if you are willing to do that, kind of like the 10% that Sam talked about as well, you have a great opportunity right now to vastly improve your top of mind awareness and your market share within your marketplace, and in some cases, even control it. And so I actually wanted to go through a couple stats that kind of back this up. And we're going to be sending out some slides afterwards, so we'll put some of this information down so you guys have it all for reference. But first and foremost, if you look at Google Trends, for just some general common keyword search volume like plastic surgery, Botox, rhinoplasty, things of that nature, you'll see like the week of March 11th when this started, it really the floor fell, and so people just stopped searching for the services we provide. And we saw about a 50 to 60% decrease that immediate week, and it stayed low for a couple weeks as we were in the panic stage. But as we slowly, gotten back into the boredom stage, now people are getting anxious for, to return to normal. We look at this past week and we see search volumes that are actually about even with the pre-COVID levels. And so we see that people are out there doing research right now.
Want me to share that screen?
No, I'm just reading right now. I'll put the stats into Google Slides. And I actually think Keith put that up in one of the slides as well. So he's probably going to expand on that. But additionally, we took a 2-month average of all of our leads that have come in, inquiries, self-tests. And if we look at the first 45 since this hit, we saw about a 50% reduction in lead volume. But when we look at the past 2 weeks, it's actually a 9% reduction year over year, 29 to 2020. And then lastly, if we look at paid social media for one particular client, they did not decrease their budget. And if we look at it in February, they had an impression share of 172,000, which means how many times that the ads appear, and we'll call it a baseline engagement level. If we look at April with the same exact marketing budget, they saw an impression share of 572,000 and a 300% increase in their ad engagement. So what's that tell us? That one, because people are spending more time on social media than ever before, your ads have a better opportunity to appear, but also less advertising means there's more inventory available and there's less clutter to cut through. And that's just social media, and that's across the board for every single medium. We're seeing the same exact trends. For Google paid search, we're seeing cost per click and cost per lead as low as, for some of our clients, as low as they've ever been in history. And I'm sure for many of you guys that do traditional advertising, TV, billboards, print, if you reach out to your vendors, you're probably going to be able to get killer deals. So I got to wrap it up.
We'll come back to you on the questions.
But anyway, my three takeaways really are: one, yes, you should be advertising right now because there's never been a time like this in recent history where we actually have the attention of our consumers. And some of my colleagues are going to talk about messaging in general, but just from a global perspective. Two, there's never been a more affordable time to purchase advertising. And three, if you're not doing it right now, then you're really going to wish you did when August, September, Q3, Q4 rolls around. So with that, I'll hand it over to Keith from Rosemount, who's going to talk even more strategically about those opportunities.
Absolutely. Thank you, Connor. And thank you, Dylan and Bill, for inviting me to this discussion today. We live in such a small little community. Our aesthetic community is an actual pretty small community when you think about it. And a lot of us know each other. And it's been great to know everybody over these years. And we've all gone through the 2008 recession. And a lot of things that Sam touched on, I wanted to reiterate again. I think we need to go back to that mindset in 2008, take that knowledge of what we had to do back then and really apply some of those methodologies to where we are now. And Sam also touched on the fact of, practices in different parts of their business. We deal with practices that have been established for 30 years to taking on, residents that are going to get their boards in a couple of months, and every focus is different. But right now, I think you have to go back to that startup time and think about that bread and butter procedure that really has, that that can bring you to the promised land, so to speak, and really focus on that procedure and building your practice up around some of your bread and butter procedures that are going to have a good return on investment, that you're confident in doing, and can provide with less staff. And some of those practices, they may not be able to provide the full suite of non-surgical, and you may have to go back to doing more of your your better return on investment procedures as a surgeon. I wanted to just touch on some opportunities out there that we need to take advantage of now, rather than waiting till the point when the state or locality that you live in says, okay, it's time to get back to work. We need to have a plan on what that looks like. What does the new normal look like in the practice? What are the precautions that you're taking? And more importantly, how are you communicating what precautions that you're taking in your practice? How are you communicating to your consumers, your patients, on what your practice is doing different? And one of the things I saw today, which was really cool, is one of our practices in Virginia produced a really cool little video that they posted on Facebook that was just showing the whole practice cleaning and very inviting, and just it made me feel good. And so just if you just want to reference, I'll just make a quick reference to it. It's called Part of Plastic Surgery, and you can do a search for them and then go to their Facebook page, and it's just their post they did today. But those are just some like little ideas, really low cost, effective ways to really communicate, what changes are going on and how your practice is adapting to the new norm. The other area of opportunity that I wanted to stress as well is virtual consultations, and how you're utilizing virtual consultations. And I think right now we're in this mode, at least for the last 60 days, where everybody's having an oh shit moment. I need to do virtual consultations. Oh my God. Or you have also practices that have already had virtual consultations established in their practice. I think sometimes virtual consultations can sound overwhelming, but I think you have to think about how are you utilizing virtual consultations. And in this world of telemedicine, really in our world of aesthetics, even in dentistry and in plastic surgery and many other aesthetic arenas, most of the time we're utilizing virtual consultations not as a way to prescribe medicine, but rather a way to use it as a qualifier to see if these patients are good candidates or not. So I'll take you back in time just a little bit. And I used to work with Dr. Jack Conor out of Dallas, who is one of the pioneers of the rhinoplasty procedure, wrote the book on it, and did many lectures, and it was an honor to work with him. But we started doing virtual consultations 20 years ago. And the reason we did that is because he was getting patients interested on a national basis. So there's no way, he didn't want all these patients coming and flying to his office and essentially wasting his time if they weren't a good candidate, wasting each other's time, essentially. I mean, nobody wants that scenario where you have to tell somebody who flew from New York City to Dallas that you're not a candidate. That's not a great way to go. So we developed a very simple way, and I think we need to think about how are you going to utilize virtual consultations now with our practice shut down, and then with our practice ramping back up, because it can be a great tool to utilize to get an idea of the candidacy of this patient. So just having a simple web form on your website that has a little brief health information on there and the ability to upload photos, you'll be able to review those photos, review the health information, and you can either respond with an email saying, hey, this looks great. It looks like you meet all the requirements from, for candidacy. Would you like to schedule an appointment? Or you can schedule a teleconference and do that via FaceTime. There's so many platforms. I could do a webinar just on all the platforms out there that are already utilized for virtual consults. This is kind of just a lower tech way to get into it. And so there's a lot of options on there.
The name of that practice? Somebody wanted to know the name.
What was it?
The name of the practice you referenced about the virtual consults.
Spencer Cochran has taken over Jack Gunner's practice. Okay. That was the original, the 20 year ago practice talking about. Yeah, it was Jack Gunner's practice was the name. So that's what we did. Started doing virtual consults 20 years ago. Obviously, virtual consults have evolved, and so I have a lot of different practices now who are utilizing very sophisticated virtual consultation processes where they go through a whole process. They utilize software, or a very simple way where patients are simply just uploading their pictures. And then the doctor, like I said, is either emailing back and saying, hey, great, let's schedule a consultation now, or they're getting on FaceTime or, like I said, other platforms and having a really great way to interact. It's also an opportunity to create a rapport with that patient. So the relationship a doctor and a patient has is phenomenal. And, that is much different than a patient calling in and asking, hey, I'm interested in a mommy makeover. You know, and there's definitely staff that are really able to answer those questions really well. But there's nothing better than talking to the doctor directly, and that rapport that you create via telemedicine, via virtual consult, unbelievable. And I'll leave with one more point.
Consults are here to stay too. The virtual consults are.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. And I think we need to think about how we're going to utilize it in the new norm, because you don't want patients hanging out in their cars, because that's what's going to happen most of the time, right? We'll probably have a scenario where people are going to show up, they're going to text and say, is it cool if I go into the practice now? And so if we have this as another tool, then we can really have a better idea of who's qualified. And then when they're coming in, then you're basically just scheduling your surgery right there. So it's a very efficient way to go. And again, this could be just a whole topic on its own. The last thing I just want to make, and it's just ramping up, getting back ready, things you got to think about. As I discussed the practice, creating the video that was just basically almost a public service announcement about their practice and what they're doing, is thinking about informed consent. And ASPS has something that they have put online that basically is an informed consent saying, hey, I acknowledge you know, all these elements, and that you know, I'm consenting to coming into your practice even though, you know, COVID-19 is an issue. The other thing is thinking about creating a new health information form for new patients that, again, asks all the questions that we need to know to help make sure we arm ourselves and not bring in new patients that may have been potentially infected by COVID, or been near a relative or somebody, or had close contact. So again, I think we'll get into that in the Q&A. We can go on and on to some of these topics, but and I think my main point and the takeaway is, let's not think about these things the day they say, okay, it's time to open back up. We really need to be in the mindset of that. And I think your graph is awesome. I went through all those things, denial, I went through all of those. Now I'm back in, okay, we've got to move on here. We got to get our lives back going again. And we've got to create our own normalcy by, you know, creating a flow and getting back to normal.
It's not going away, you know.
Yeah, it's not going away. So
for sure.
I'm very optimistic though. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It is that I know we've got Matt and Tom both covering action plan. I forget which one of you guys are coming on first, but you guys can both come on board here. Which ones? Raise your hand if you're starting. Matt, are you up first? Or okay, Tom, with Crystal Clear Marketing. These guys are digital marketing specialists. They're definitely saturated in aesthetics. I think you guys work in other specialties as well. Appreciate you joining us.
No, thank you both. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Dylan, for having me on the panel. It's an honor to be on here with all of you and some of the great industry leaders here. And our goal is just to give you guys some tips, tools, tricks, some nuggets that you can utilize today, right? So our topic that I'm doing with Matt from Turbo is really about some steps, you know, for reopening your practice, right? So, you know, we have many of our clients that are preparing for a re-grand opening, right? So this is kind of it's a new opportunity, right? To clean the slate, to start from essentially scratch again, but to create some excitement, create some buzz, and make it a more pleasant experience, right? In these times. So I'm going to bring up we've got one sheet, you know, we've got a slide that we're going to kind of cover, Matt and I. So I'm going to bring that up right now, and I'm going to walk you through the first part of that. Dylan, do you want to bring that up, or you want me to bring that up?
Yes, I can bring it up. Is this
you can bring that up
reopening the practice?
Right.
It's steps for reopening your practice.
I'll just bring it up on my screen. I've got it here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a moment here. All right. Can you guys see it?
Perfect. Thank you so much. So a few things, guys, that we want to cover, okay, is, you know, when you're thinking about reopening, okay, you know, we've got to focus on announcing, right? What you know in advance, you can prepare for in advance, profound knowledge, okay? So we know we're going to be opening. How are we getting that messaging out, right, to our existing patient base, our past patients that we want to re-engage, and then any new ones that have been coming in, right? They need to know about this. And it's going to be a multi-prong approach, guys, but you really want to start with your existing database. That is your gold mine, right? So you've got to be able to mine that, right? Start with what you have. A great way to do that is to utilize your website, right? So you should be working with your marketing company and creating a slide or an announcement on the website. If you know when you're going to be reopening, let's get ahead of that. So work with your marketing company on advertising, you know, when that grand opening is going to happen, so they know when you're going to be open for business. And you might even want to offer a promotion or something, okay, for the first, you know, again, you know, we talked about scarcity and creating that sense of urgency. So maybe you might want to create some sort of promotion, okay, or a giveaway or an offering of some sort for a certain amount of time that will entice people to start booking, right? It's going to be important to start filling up that schedule. But it's going to be a blended strategy, guys, right? It is going to be a blend of getting this message out with social media. You know, we need to get the message out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. All the social media outlets should be utilized to get the message out about the grand opening. And it should also be linked to that specific information page in the website, right? Where they can learn about whatever promotion or incentive you have, and they can call or email to participate, right? So make changes on your website. You want to utilize social media leading up. I would do it leading up to the opening, right? Just keeping people abreast. If there's any changes to that date, they're going to need to know about that. You want to communicate there. You want to communicate using email marketing, right? You should have some email marketing campaigns that are going out against your existing patients, past patients that maybe haven't been in a while, as well as the new ones, okay, that have been coming in along the way. Text message marketing, also going to be hugely important, guys, right? To get messages out to your existing patient database, letting them know about the grand opening, and then calls to action again, right? We want to manage our reviews, review map platforms, right? So your Google My Business, your Apple Maps, you know, some of these are now telling people that you're closed. If you're going to be reopening, you're going to want those to be revived, right? Letting people know that you are open for business. It's going to be tremendously important. And as Sam said, we might have to do some of the things that we haven't done in a while, and that's call people, get on the phone and call people, call your existing patients, have several people call your existing patients. We're just letting you know we're planning to open this time. You know, come to our website for more information. Are you following us on social media? If not, here's why you should be following us on social media, right? We're going to be sending out texts leading up to the opening, letting you know what's going on as well. We want to communicate with you via text. You should be doing a press release, right? Again, that's another great way to get the information out about, hey, listen, we're reopening. We're open for business. Come on in, schedule your appointment. You know, it's going to be a different normalcy. So hurry up and schedule your appointment now. You want to be first in line. Let's get you booked. Let's get you a spot, right? And the key, guys, is the bottom. And this is where Matt and I are really going to focus on, is that you're going to need some type of medical practice CRM to do these things effective and efficiently, right? Customer relationship management, right? Something that can automate this social media, that you can schedule it to go out in advance and it's automated. You don't have to manually post to each different outlet, right? That's going to just automate that. Setting up email campaigns and drips and a schedule of delivery on certain dates. You're going to need software to do that, right? Text messaging. You know, this is going to be hugely important for you to be able to schedule those things out and have communication with your database that way. So hugely important, guys. It's all going to be tied to software, but focus on your existing database. That is the low-lying fruit, right? Let's start there. How much does it cost you to market to your existing database, guys? Zero. You want some low-cost marketing? Market to your existing database and utilize software to be more effective and efficient at getting this communication out through a blended strategy. And Matt, I think I'll turn it over to you at this point for number 2, my friend.
All right, thank you, Tom. That was excellent. My name is Matt Arndt. I'm the CEO at Turbo Medical Marketing, and I just get, you know, I'm so honored to be a part of this webinar with OptiCall. We've worked with them for several years now, and they're a great organization. And obviously, it's been great to be among my peers here with Tom at Crystal Clear and Sam at Incredible and Keith and I mean, it's just a huge honor. So just to kind of pick up where Tom left off, we were talking about using automation and CRMs to really help reopen your practice. And the second part of this is really refilling your schedule. So many of my practices had, weeks, if not months, booked out ahead of time. And a lot of those appointments had to be canceled or moved. So now is your opportunity to start with those folks that already had appointments on the books, whether those were for consultations, for surgeries if you're in a surgical practice, or just plain on appointments for any type of procedures for medical spas or dermatology practices. And it's incredibly important to just start with those folks because they were already committed to coming in. There's no point in spending a bunch of money to try to bring in for if they've never heard of you, or you don't need to spend that money until you've already reestablished your books with the patients that were already committed to you in the past. And so the real thing is, and the thing that Tom and I were talking about is, you can set up an automated campaign within many different types of software to start doing the follow-up to get these guys back in the books. If you have a way that they can rebook on their own, that's one option. If you have if you just need them to reply so that you can get a hold of them at a certain time, that's another great way to do it as well. So really reach out to them using all the mediums that we talked about before, whether that would be calls, emails, or texts. But you need to organize that and make sure that you don't miss anybody. Those are definitely your low-hanging fruit. So really, that's what we wanted to reinforce. And I'm going to kind of jump into number 3, and then Tom's going to wrap it up at the end of this. And that's really generating new patients. Really, we want to reinforce where you want to find new patients right now, and the easiest, fastest way to do that is by using advertising. We really like to use Facebook and Instagram as an inexpensive source of new patients, and also Google Ads are another great way to do this. So you're going to want to, obviously, in the short run, be running ads to kind of intercept that volume of people that have been looking during the shutdown. And if you have the budget and you can afford to do it, start now. But if you don't, first start with your existing database, because that doesn't cost you anything. Tom, I'll let you keep on going from here.
Thanks, Matt. So guys, also it's going to be important as you're starting to see new patients come in, right? And I would treat this like, treat it truly like you're a new practice again, right? And really give that high touch, that you got to really give an excellent patient experience, right? When a patient comes in, because what we need to start again is getting reviews, right? Many practices, they have not been open for a couple months, at least a month and a half. We need to start getting that flow and gaining and gathering new patient reviews, right? It's going to be tremendously important. So provide great treatments, provide great service, start encouraging people to leave reviews. Now, again, we'll go back to software. There's software that you can use, guys, that you can schedule campaigns for patients where after they've left, it will send them messaging encouraging them to leave reviews for you, right? Now, I would only put them in those types of campaigns if they've had a positive experience, obviously. But let's use automation. Let's use software to encourage folks leaving reviews for us. It's going to be equally important. The other thing, we're going to have to look at our people, the processes we have in place at the practice in using tools, right? So part of this is going to be a sales process in the practice, right? We're going to have to encourage our staff, right? After a patient's had an experience with us, it's been positive, we're going to have to start encouraging referrals, right? This is another easy way to obtain new patient opportunities without having to spend a ton of money in marketing dollars. We almost have to get back to basics. The stuff that we probably forgot was important and never made it a point to do these things, right? Well, now's our opportunity to start at the ground floor again, essentially, but to build it the right way. So look at this opportunity, guys, as a relaunching of your practice. Get excited about it. Many of you are not starting from square one. Remember that. You're sitting on a massive database, and that can become gold. How to access it and to utilize it properly, categorize it, properly, and use that as a segmentable database to touch different people. But also, again, it comes down to people, right? People are the ones performing the procedures. People are the ones that are scheduling consultations and interviewing the new patients coming in. Treat them right. Not that we didn't do this in the past, but we have to do a better job now, right? People are going to have options, okay? And we really just want to make sure that we're setting and managing their expectations, but also utilizing that with some low or no cost ways that we can drive new patient opportunities in. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Good points. Appreciate it. All right. We ready for Karen then?
Ready.
All right. You want to turn your camera on, Karen?
I'm going to do
All
it.
right. So we've got Karen
Hello.
Zupko,
Hello.
who's
Well-
a well-known.
I'm ready to go. I've got 5 minutes and I've got information overload. So I was asked to think about the economic landscape, and the one thing I can guarantee you is that all of the non-core specialists in cosmetic and some of the more marginal members of the core specialties will be out actively imitating, let's make a deal and the price is right. And maybe even in icky plaid sport jackets, okay? They're gonna make this opening all about the price. And let's face it, before COVID, you had patients who had a beer budget, but who wanted champagne. You know what? It's not your market. You are not everybody's plastic surgeon. If I can leave you with that one message, there's some business that's best left to others. And I also want to remind you that there are patients who regard getting a deal, a discount, or other concessions as sport. And when they're confronted by a very, very effective, by the way, experienced patient care coordinator, they often laugh and say, well, you know, I had to ask. And some of you buckle on the first ask. And why? Because there really hasn't been any strategic thinking. So I'm advocating, number one, we're going to sit down and put all the pricing, the quotes, we're really going to think about what our strategy is ahead of time when those discount piranhas are trying to take a piece out of us. I'm going to tell you, you will not be making a good pricing decision. You will not if you are doing it between exam room 2 and exam room 3 and the patient coordinator is going, what should I tell her? You know why? Because you gave Mrs. Deal a reduction. Unfortunately, you don't know that Mrs. Pleading is her friend. And there will be price comparisons. So when you're giving one deal and one another, you are guaranteed to generate some animosity. So I think what we should do, there's not one right answer. Geographically, there are significant differences between people in a state with a 3.8% unemployment rate and those of you in Mississippi with an 8%, and those of you in Las Vegas who have a double-digit unemployment rate. Your practices are at different ages, different stages, and you all had a core clientele. So there's not one right answer, but there are good and right questions that are going to help you set your tactical, your tactics up. So let's suppose you charge for consults now, and you've never applied the consult fee to the surgery fee. That might be something in this, because you want to have something prospectively to offer, that might be something that you consider. You might consider doing that if the patient books something within the first 30 days. If you are doing free consults, I want you to remember, and the marketing guys and I don't agree on this, that many of you will be doing free second opinions for Dr. Discount. They're going to want to know that the best guy agrees with the guy that gave me the deal down the street. You might want to think, if you're looking at special pricing, to give a discount or a more generous price reduction on double procedures. So if you're doing an augapexy, that may be a place to offer a better combination price. Same thing with rhinoplasty and mentoplasty. that might be something that you can think about. And I also want to say that you all should be running your quotes. You should be looking at the language on the quotes, because many of the quotes that my colleague Amy Anderson and I review, when it comes to money, all this shouting starts. Okay, bad echo there, Dylan. I also want to think about bundled pricing. And there's a wonderful Harvard Business Review article that says when you line item every item, you encourage people to say, oh, you know, I don't want that bra. I'll go to Target and get one cheaper. I don't want the scar gel. So you might want to think about doing a bundled price, breast augmentation, particularly if you own the facility. That works out very well. Let's suppose your hourly rate in the operating room was $2,500. I just picked a number. What happens if we decide that during this period, which is not a rate, by the way, that we communicate to patients, that we decide to do some sort of reduction for the opening? What I want you to think about is, what if I buy the first round of toxins at your normal full price, and then the second 100 units, whatever, at a reduction? The important thing is that you set a strategy, you have a conversation, and it does require some staff training. Their skills have sort of atrophied over the last 6 weeks. Thanks very much. And one last thing, if you aren't aware that Care Credit is offering a sensational deal, you need to take a look at that, because it goes from May 15th to August, through the end of August. And patient financing will be something that patients who didn't need it before will be able to utilize now. And it is effective. Let them take that middle position.
I appreciate that, Karen. I know most of the financing companies have come out with special options. I know Alfei and Green Sky, Care Credit have, I think Care Credit's doing like a stimulus package, and some of them have offered extended 0% financing options or delayed payment plans. So whoever you work with, we encourage you to connect with them to use that as a tool to get more patients.
I think the best thing on the Care Credit report is you can see what everybody was approved for.
Oh, good to know. All right. Well, thank you. Well, our last speaker today, we're honored to have him. I appreciate you joining us, Dr. Mulholland. Hopefully many of you guys are familiar with him. He's a world-renowned surgeon out of Toronto, Canada, with Spa Medica, and we're honored to have been working with him for several years. And he's going to share some insight about what he's seeing firsthand at the practice level and some of the things that he's done to kind of combat this pandemic. Dr. Mulholland, take it away.
Thanks, Dylan. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Sounds good.
Well, you know, I've become kind of redundant. There's some tremendous marketing and practice strategy suggestions on this webinar. So I'll just lend to the viewers, probably a lot of them practice managers, consult coordinators, or surgeons, what I've done. I'm 60 years old, so this is my 25th year in business. I own a plastic surgery center and a medical spa. Toronto is a population of about 7 million people. You know, it's the third largest city in North America. Not many people know that, behind New York and LA. It's very affluent and it's very multicultural. And so there's different solutions for different practices. As Karen said, it depends where you are, the rate of unemployment, the reality of COVID penetration, your state and regulatory environment, how you open up. I'm going to share with you what I have done. And so the first thing you do as a surgeon and a physician, you have to look at your cash flow. What did you have in the bank? What's your burn rate? If you keep staff, if you lose staff, if you furlough them or you keep them on. What do you want to accomplish if you keep your staff? And there should be some strategic goals. First of all, engage the customer database you have. Do some data mining. Reach out to them. Keep mind share. Let them know you're there. You're offering opportunities. So keep and protect your book of business. So I let some of my OR staff go that were hourly workers. They could go back to the hospital and save the world from coronavirus. But for my core staff, my lead gen coordinators, my consult coordinators, I took the company virtually online in 2 weeks at the end of March. And I've been doing virtual consultations, which you must offer, for many years, much like Jack Gunter, who I loved. Most of my facelift patients come from the other side of the country. And so I've always done go-to meetings. And in this country, you got to respect PIPEDA and HIPAA, and only Doxy, me, and go-to meeting respect those privacy laws. So I took the rest of the company online, though, our lead gen coordinators, our consult coordinators, and our skincare coordinators. I segregated my 24,000 patients into silos of platinum spenders, gold spenders, bronze spenders, package buyers, face and body, and created outbound lists that we could reach out to via e-blast, encouraging that their delinquency has been noted, we are going to be open, we're going to be safe, and we want their business. I agree with Karen, I'm not a big discounter, but the reality is I've been through 5 downturn economies. One thing always happens, the market share, the wallet share goes slightly down, and you need to either decide, I don't care, I'm top of the food chain and this is what it costs, or you have other ways to offer bundled specials within that, doubling down on surgery, post-op care. There's many ways a smart consult coordinator can sell a bundle. So reach out, data mine, ensure that you're protecting your book of business. So I know every week I bump, which annoyingly I'm doing week after week because our premier, he's not as aggressive on opening a flattened curve as he should. I'm bumping about 100 grand in non-surgical revenue. So I'm bumping week to week until we can get open, but we're staying engaged. We're making sure those customers are coming back on pre-booked packages. One of the speakers was absolutely right. 08, 9, 10, post 9/11, post MERS, post SARS here in Toronto, which was big, post 99.com, people vanished. They vanished for 2-3 months, maybe longer. So after your book of business is done that you've protected by reaching out, you got to protect the funnel. So I've been filling the funnel. So rather than scale back on marketing, I've gone strategic on my pay-per-click, strategic on my social. Our consult volume was about 75% in April, what it would be in a normal month, all virtual, with about 70% closure rate, all because we were able to go virtual. And so I'm trying to make sure I'm filling that funnel, knowing my consult to treatment to booked procedure closure rates. And that's only possible with use of CRM. So whether you're using CallRail or HubSpot or customized CRM, you need to track your leads, nurture the leads. Someone mentioned drip marketing. If that lead doesn't close, now is the time to drip market 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 compelling pieces that keep them engaged. And then at 1 month, the closing call again. So try to keep your closing rates high, reach out, engage new patients, protect your funnel, your book of business in August, September, October, because I bumped a whole month of April, I bumped the whole month of May. It sounds like real revenue, but it's not because they already paid, and many of you may have burnt through that revenue. Because my account insists on revenue recognition, I did move that money forward, but if you spent that money, you're doing non-cash flow surgery, which is usually a disaster. So you got to think around that. Take advantage of subsidies, wage subsidies, loans, and state and local programs if they're available to you. Okay, so now you're going to open up and you're going to see a contraction. There's going to be fewer patients at the price points you used to serve. You're either going to drop your price point or maintain your price point, sell the value proposition of you're the best, which may be your strategy if you are the best. If you're not the best, create that perception, or you got to sell your ASP is going a little lower. You're going to have a smaller throughput because we got to turn over the AOR takes an hour. There's the intubation, aerosolization, wait half an hour, clean, extubate, aerosolization, clean. So that's 1 hour between cases. If you're running a bunch of $6,000 augments, you're taking away 1 or 2 cases a day. So work out your throughput, work out your cost per business. In my market, how I've got to protect mask to mask and shield to shield and plexiglass to patient, it costs me $10,000 more a month to run the same business, just in PPE and equipment. So factor that in the cost of doing business. And by all means, do not shut the door. You need to market actively. In every downturn economy over the last 25 years, I've grabbed market share. I've captured SEO market share. I've captured social media market share, and opportunity costs have come my way because other practices just shut down, which I never truly understood unless it's cash flow. That I definitely understand. And so I would just say there's tremendous opportunity. This is a great time to grab more business, a great time to reestablish your brand, to be the dominant player if you're not, to move up the pecking order if you've desired that. One thing I know about women, 92% of my patients are women. Just because the economy sucks, they don't look in the mirror and go, I'm gonna look like shit. It doesn't happen. They will be back. They will spend their money. They'll put out their husband's credit card. They will steal their kids' lunch money to get their Botox filler, mini facelift, and intervention. But those interventions will change. So my last message is look for the compelling procedures they're going to want. The big facelifts, and I do about 100 a year before every one of these downturns, they always dropped in half. So what sustained me the year until they built up? Because 50% of my facelift patients are just scraping that money together, that 20, 25 grand. The rest don't care. Raise your money on those that have a great zip code, that are sparkling bling and coming in with that Birkin bag that costs 15 grand that takes a year to get. Be price point sensitive to those that need price point sensitivity. And there's nothing better than a gap procedure. Those procedures that take non-invasive energy, radio frequency, plasma, fractional, and they're better than the non-invasives my nurses are doing, but it's not a cut or an excision. Those gap procedures will sustain your facial practice, your non-invasive practice. So if you're a cutter, think without a scalpel, think what the consumer wants. They don't want to get put to sleep and intubated with coronavirus all over the place. They want a local anesthetic procedure that has a quick recovery because they just missed 8 weeks of work. I call them gap procedures, written by Spiro Theodoro in ASJ about a year ago, where you take products like FaceTite, AccuTite, Morpheus, Plasma, Smart Lipo. There's no excision. It's under local. You do it in about a week. That will fill a lot of your bookings while you're waiting for the big chops to come back, and they will. It'll take about 2 years, I think, 2 years, and a vaccine. Anyway, that's all I can say. I'm excited about this because I see being able to crush my competition. I want to crush them. I want to open and be bigger than I was before. Now is the time to crush.
Yeah.
Or survive and thrive.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. You gave me an idea. You could have, you could do like a raffle for anybody that has surgery this year for the Birkin bag.
We'll barter the Birkin and then repurpose it, regift it. Absolutely, I like that. That.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We've got quite a few questions lined up. I guess I'm wondering if we should direct any to Dr. Mulholland while we've still got him on here. I know I've got some questions for you, Karen, that are lined up. We'll jump into that first. Karen, what about safety measures? I know you touched on it a little bit, but one person specifically asked how to approach office procedures where patients need to remove their mask, just safety measures in general. I know we've kind of covered this a little bit.
I really want to recommend, I received today a copy both of the Canadian Plastic Surgeons paper on reopening your office, and I also read this morning a 16-page, very detailed plan that the Aesthetic Society has at www.surgery.org. And the specificity and level of detail in both, I highly recommend that you refer to those. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Good point. I'll ask you one question before you take off, Dr. Mulholland. This is kind of unique, but what do you do if you have a staff member that tests positive for COVID-19? How do you handle that?
There's many issues, and some of them are jurisdictional, governed by state medical boards and provincial laws, and many are perceptual. I didn't get to it, but one of my biggest obligations as an owner, I'm a surgery center owner, is the perception, if not the reality, of staff safety. They need to come back thinking, I'm in a very safe environment, because they are watching MSNBC, CNN, New York. They think it's the viral apocalypse and the world is changing. And it has changed, and we don't want them to get sick, and we don't want patients to get sick. So you need to create a lockdown process, and I've implemented a sign-in sheet, pre-testing, symptom array, temperatures twice a day.
When they come in?
Absolutely, twice a day, actually. They have to have a sign-in sheet, a sign-out sheet, and a staff indemnification form that comes from our medical practice provider that they may get sick. It's probably not going to be from us, but here's our steps. And then you got to look at like a war zone. The front of your engagement starts with a check-in table. They don't even come inside the clinic. Covered by plexiglass, just like here at Walgreens. And you're going to pass that form across. You're going to fill it out as the patient. You're going to get your infrared temperature taken. You're going to have those questions asked of you the day before and 2 days before. If you're having surgery in my practice, we're going to test you 5 days before, and you sign an affidavit that you have quarantined for 5 days. At the end of all that, the false negative rate is so high, you got to assume everybody has it, staff and patient. So it's going to be mask to mask, and in my environment, it's going to be shield N95 to a patient mask. And as you go deeper, everyone gets more and more suited up. And to a point where we're doing slide glide intubation scopes in a plastic box, and we're extubating the same, so no aerolization, clean out the OR, 1 hour to the turnover time. So I think the reality of patient engagement is going to change completely. And I think you got to protect your staff, and they got to think you're protecting your staff just like they were a patient. Everyone can wear an N95, even though it's nonsense, even though without proper fitting, it's not 95% flow filtration, but it doesn't matter. It's mask to mask, mask to plexiglass. Anyone inside the 3 foot zone, I encourage you to look at a company I work closely with called Pronox. We've developed this mouth filter, which is going to save the industry for injectors. It's a little mouth filter you put your mouth around. Patient breathes in, it filters out, and it filters out 99% of all viruses and all bacteria. So you put your nose clip on, you have your little filter, you do your Botox, your filler, take the filter out, clip off, put it in a little bag, give it to them. That protects your staff from them. All we need to do now is protect the staff from the patient. So it's only that Pronox staff. It's called, well, look up Pronox CareStream, very big company. It's nitrous oxide. They've come with a little filter that you don't need the nitrous oxide for, that filters out 99% of all viral particles. That alone is a game changer, because it's your staff inside the 3 foot zone that are concerned. Not the
questions we got to get to. I hate to cut you short.
It's sunny. I'm going to go have a cigar. Have a good afternoon, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks again, Dr. Mulholland.
If you want to turn your
Appreciate your
webcam
time.
back on, I've got one for you.
I'm going back to porn. Okay, see you guys later.
All right. We'll be in touch. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Dylan, can I make one suggestion?
What's that?
When he talks about you're giving the patient a form, we're encouraging all of our clients to skip all forms of paper things that people fill out, and clipboards and pens. Those patients need to be directed to go to your portal. They need to complete their demographics, their health history. And if somebody says, I don't have a computer, I don't know how to type, whatever it is, then one of your staff who maybe doesn't want to be on the front line, who's a little more skittish, needs to call patients, interview them, and have all of that information inputted prior to their arrival in the office. No paper forms, no clipboard, no pens.
For sure. All right, Sam, I know you had one thing you wanted to mention about blogging before we get it. You want to bring that up now before we get into the question?
Yeah, thanks.
I thought that was Sam, actually, Tommy.
What's that?
I thought it was Sam that messaged
Mine
me.
was about pricing. I wanted to talk just for a second about the pricing and the deals and stuff like that.
And we got to keep this moving. I got a ton of questions.
Yeah, no. That's fine. And this ties into one of the questions that were discussed earlier, but we talked a little bit about that backflow. And I think
your question was, do you think patients will be more apprehensive to schedule exams?
Yeah, so more apprehensive, and I think it comes down to your patient population. Obviously, this is going to vary wildly depending on, California versus middle of the country versus where you're located in jurisdiction and things like that. But you are going to have your patient population that is going to come in. There's going to be a large group that's going to come in the day you open, the week you open, the month you open. And so there's going to be some that come to you that trust you. You are the medical provider. You are going to follow these regulations. They are going to trust you, and they're going to come in. I am very hesitant to advise and tell our practices run a discount, a special offer, things like that, because you're going to get busy right at the beginning. If you're opening up and like Tommy said earlier, you're reaching out to your patients that you have currently in your database and they know that you're back open, they're going to come in. You need to save some of those special offers, promotions, group bundling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for when it starts to get slow, when you need to fill things up. So late July, early August, depending on how busy you are for a backflow, and start filling it up then. Because if you use those deals and discounts now, you're already going to be lower on your revenue because you're seeing less patients. You have to take more care. Like Mulholland said, there's larger turnaround times, this, that, the other. So we have to make sure, because people are going to be hesitant, but there's going to be a group that's going to come see you no matter what, that no matter how much you charge, essentially they're going to come and see you because they trust and they want you. So bring those people in, schedule that in, and be reluctant to offer those sales and those discounts until potentially you need to do it later to really bulk up that flow, like Mulholland was suggesting. And that's the point I wanted to bring up.
For people who are requesting deals and discounts on day one.
I would say don't deal with those people. Unfortunately, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you're now going to be able to see, say, only 50 to 70% of the patient flow that you were able to see pre this, right? You want to save and reserve and work with those spaces for those people that are loyal, that are your ambassadors, that are going to be coming in. If those are the people that are really asking for discounts, you have to take a hard look at that. But there are going to be people that are going to come see you and pay no matter what. And I think that if you race to the bottom now, if you are running these specials, these introductory offers, because you've been closed for a couple months, you're only going to be basically cutting yourself off at the knees. You're going to discount your own services that people are going to come in there and see anyway. I think those sales, those big promotions, those bundles, those need to be held off for as long as possible, probably until July, August, September, towards the end of the quarter into Q4, because we have practices right now that are booked up, and for the next several months.
That dovetails into the next question, which is for Conor, when to resume advertising? You want to take that?
Yeah, I think we all have been kind of universal on that, and it's no surprise that I echo Dr. Mulholland's sentiment. He's a good friend of mine. We've been working together for years, but the whole idea that right now you have an opportunity to grab market share, so you should be advertising right now. And simply because, like I said in my presentation part, that people are bored and we have their attention. And normally, we talk about marketing and advertising, it's always about what unique message can we come up with, what unique promotion or whatever have you that will cut through the clutter, all the clutter that's out there from an advertising perspective. There's simply less clutter out there. So, to Sam's point, I completely agree. You don't need to be marketing, putting out, specials and promotions. You just need to be focused on what are the core competencies that you offer, what are the high procedure ROIs, right, that we talked about, and what makes you different. And communicate that message out there. And that's really all you need to do, because people are more willing to engage right now than they have ever been in the past. And really quickly, so you should be doing it right now. But really quickly, I wanted to do something. I wanted to say thanks to OptiCall, but I wanted to plug you guys too. I don't know, for a lot of you guys, you might not know what OptiCall does. Like they said, they're elective lead handling. And since we're all working virtual right now, people are probably taking phone calls, from their home offices and, from their cell phones and their cars or what have you, when people, call and follow up with web leads and things of that nature. But the majority of our practices use OptiCall. They offer nights and weekends, and it's really been an awesome tool for them, because not only do they convert at a high level, it frees up your staff to focus on actual, patient communication when people come through the front door and things of that nature. They just, they understand that, behind the scenes, these guys are moving people through the pipeline for them. So they do provide a very valuable.
Like, as some of you know, my wife actually is an office manager at an aesthetics practice, and I was there the other day, and they actually had somebody checking patients in outside of the building. So if that's the same person that handles the phone calls, it's like, it was already kind of a bottleneck, so I can only imagine how things are going to be moving forward. So I appreciate the plug, and it's
no worries.
The business that we live, it's super important that you have a lead conversion system in place, so you're delivering consistently and maximizing these opportunities. So thank you. Keith, we'll just go. I'm just going to keep the questions in order of the panelists, so everybody gets a little face time here. So Keith, aside from informing your audience that you're following all safety precautions, what can you say to encourage people?
Again, I think reassuring people that they have processes in place. Obviously, I think, as I referenced earlier, making these simple videos of what's going on in your practice, letting people know exactly what the steps are, and going back to try to utilize virtual consultations as best as possible to keep that patient flow and use that virtual consult as a filter. And like I said, it can be used in so many simple ways. That you're utilizing this, just from simply having people call in and saying, hey, would you like to do a virtual consult? Go on our website, fill out the form, and then we'll schedule a time for you to talk to the doctor. And I think some of those efficiencies are really awesome.
Excellent. I think we got Tommy up next. Sorry, just trying to manage my screen here. So Tommy, we've got a few questions. How to offer and market promotions that are attractive and lucrative?
Yeah, so I think it's again a multi-prong.
I'm just going to roll out all the questions. I'm going to hit you with all three at once.
Okay.
Tips to connect with new patients and what type of procedures will be most popular? Because those are all assigned to you right now.
Yeah, so speaking about promotions, guys, you're going to want to use a multi-prong approach to do that, a blended strategy, right? So again, it's going to be changes to the website, on what's being offered. And then it's going to be an email marketing strategy as well, getting the message out to your database of existing patients, past patients, and obviously anybody new coming into the practice, you're going to want to let them know about any promotions, specials, features, whatever you've got going on. You're going to want to use social media. Again, you're going to want to get the messaging out with Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, all the other means of doing that. And you're going to want to have calls to action within those pieces that then drive people to specific pages in the site that deal with those specific treatments, therapies, procedures, or whatever promotion that you're offering at the time. Text messaging is also going to be a great way to get the message out about promotions. And again, when people are in the practice, right, and you're serving these patients, you also want to let them know about what's going on for any promotions, any specials, things like that you have out. But it's a multi-pronged approach of how you're going to get that messaging out, and you should do those on a consistent basis. People like to see that on a consistent basis. What was the second question, Dylan?
So it was, oh, you know what? I think I took one of Matt's. Oh, wait. Oh, no, we're good. So it's fast marketing and tips to connect with new patients.
Yeah, so again, fast marketing, right? What's the fastest marketing you could do to your existing database? Dr. Mulholland talked about this. It really is, and I spoke about this earlier. Your database is your gold mine, and you need to start focusing there. That's going to be your fastest way to generate business, is your existing database. That's your fast marketing, right? Other things, obviously, you're going to maybe invest in pay-per-click or Google AdWords, right? That's something that can give you instantaneous traffic representing your business in front of certain demographics, right? Social media ads, somebody mentioned Facebook ads, Instagram ads. These are going to be important as well to get your messaging out quickly and to drive people with calls to action, right? That's going to be extremely important. So those are some of the faster things that you can do. Now, you can't ignore, okay, and I missed this when I was on last. You can't ignore the things that are going to give you long-term success, right? Blogging and creating unique, consistent, but custom content on a regular basis, because the whole time you still need to be building that organic strategy, that SEO strategy where you're not paying for placement. And a big part of how you're going to be represented in the organic space is by creating content that's consistent and unique around those areas that drive the most revenue into the practice. Pick your top 10 treatments, therapies, procedures that drive the most revenue, because this is going to be important right now. Every procedure needs to be, the most value that we can provide, right? And most revenue we can receive. Let's focus our content around those treatments and procedures. So that's going to help our SEO rank higher for those types of procedures, in the long term. So short term and long term, you've got to be doing the long-term strategy right now too.
Yeah, good points. Next one's from Matt here. Some of this stuff kind of overlaps a little bit. Any tips and tricks for generating a healthy volume of patients in the med spa?
Yeah, so in med spa marketing really needs to be procedure based, and I think that if you know the best entry points where you still have a margin, I think procedure-based marketing is the best way to do that. So you have to know your escalation scale and how what your best patients are to bring in. A lot of folks like to use fillers as a means to do that. Hydrofacials, other facials for med spas that they like to use as their entry point. And the best way to do this, really, in a short and quick and dirty type of scenario, is to do advertising using intercept marketing on Facebook and Instagram. And you can also do this on Google AdWords as well, and really focus on different entry points and build up a database. And as Tom was talking about earlier, we totally agree with him. It's all about having the database of patients and building that database using high intention med spa patients. And then what it really comes down to is having proper lead follow-up and systems around selling these leads that you have, because without proper follow-up and proper process, all those leads just go to waste. And I know that's one of the big things that OptiCall helps with tremendously, but also using other technology to automate the process is really essential, especially if you're going to have less staff available to help with this. You need to be using technology, and outsourced things like OptiCall to make that work. And that's really essential. You got to make the most out of your leads. Without that, you're just blowing money, and no one has extra money to do that with right now.
For sure. So we're down to like 2 minutes left. So this is kind of the speed round. If you can give me answers in like 15 seconds, that'd be ideal. Sam, you're next. Trying to focus marketing dollars on most profitable procedures. What is a quick calculation to determine the most profitable?
Your revenue per procedure minus your direct expenses, because you're going to have to manage your business and that cash flow with employees different, but just simply understand, and this is what I make for doing the procedure. This is how many I do per hour. Typically, a surgeon's going to make pre-COVID about 4,000 to 5,000 per hour. You're going to have someone in non-surgical doing between 1,200 and 2,000. If you can get those numbers at about 75% of where they were pre-COVID, that should look pretty good for the next several months.
Is it surgery or aesthetics stuff that's usually more profitable?
Well, surgery will always be more profitable as opposed to non-surgical stuff. But again, it depends on whether the doctor is having to do it or whether you have an esthetician, nurse, or whatever doing it. So you have to calculate it just basically per hour. And then I attest to what another panelist said, which was real simple. Make sure that you're marketing specifically for those procedures that are generating that revenue for you. Now is not the time to kind of go after those hook procedures, those that aren't bringing you in the revenue, but usually used to bring people in through the door. Don't do that right now. Go after where that revenue is.
Great. Conor, do we see any signs that interest in elective/cosmetic healthcare is rising among search engine users? Did it ever slow down?
Did it ever slow down? Yeah, I touched on this on the on my presentation. Yeah, we saw about a 50 to 60% immediate drop right around that second week in March, when all the shutdowns started happening and everybody went into the denial and panic stages. But slowly but surely, it's been creeping back up, and over the last week, they're getting pretty close to pre-COVID levels. So I think everybody's kind of, they're in the research phase right now. So now's the opportunity to get in front of them.
Let me just add on that with one little positive note on this. I think we're glad that this epidemic didn't happen in 2008. So, I think that's a huge benefit, that we're in a really good, I think most of us probably were seeing the best business we've ever seen.
Very right.
We also have never seen an influx of cash into the marketplace with these PPP loans. I mean, we're talking by the end of this, we could see $3 to $4 trillion of stimulus money entered in, which is unprecedented. Last time in 2008, it went to the banks. Nobody got any relief. These are different times. This is a different scenario. And I'm also gonna bank on the YOLO scenario. And what Dr. Mulholland said is, when people want to get stuff done, they find the money, they get it done. And I think maybe after this, or as we merge out of this, people are going to feel like you only live once. I'm going to get that done because I held back and I didn't do it. And I'm thinking the same way on everything in my life, vacations, everything. And I'm going to do my best to influx this economy, spend as much friggin' money as I can over the next couple
I think everybody sitting at home right now is probably saving money. People who, I mean, obviously there's, right? We're all saving money. So even though we're making less money for the most part, we're not spending it.
I think it depends on who you are. Some people are actually coming out ahead. Some people are spending a lot less, eating out less.
There's a lot of reasons for optimism.
And there's unbelievable deals out there. If you're in the process of renegotiating your lease for your property, you have an advantage. If you're buying other products and services, you have an advantage. So many of this is so reminiscent. I started Rosemont Media in 2008. So for me, I started the business in January of 2008. It was, you know, and the need for marketing was so unique then too. And everybody started looking at their marketing. So for all of us as well, this is a unique opportunity for us to grab market share. And it's a unique opportunity, and every practice out there that's on this webinar should be thinking about their marketing, looking at their marketing, and thinking about their relationship with their marketing company and thinking, hey, is this a good relationship? Am I getting the most out of this? Is this beneficial? You know, I think at the end of the day, and there's a big technology side of this, of course, on that end, but at the end of the day, it's about a good relationship with your marketing company.
What was that? What was the practice that did the cleaning video? I think I missed that. But
Parva Plastic Surgery.
Okay.
I thought it was a really cute little video they did. They did it on their own. I had nothing to do with it. They posted on their own. We do work with them, but I just thought it was very, very well done little video that made me feel well. So it's Parva Plastic Surgery, and they're in Virginia.
I'm going to jump to Matt since he only got one question earlier. We've got quite a few open-ended questions. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find one that's appropriate for you.
Fair enough.
Insurance-based patients and how much to minimize risk for surgical patients. I don't know if you want to get into that. Sorry. Are affiliate programs an attractive option by eliminating upfront costs and providing passive income?
That's a good question. So isn't this a little bit more of a business question as opposed to, you know, a marketing? You know, I tend to think that the affiliate programs, you know, they're a cop-out. You know, I think that you're in business to make your own rules. In affiliate programs, you're relying on somebody else. So personally, I would try to do it the right way, bring it into your practice, do your own marketing around it, and, you know, make the margins that you deserve, because affiliate margins are very, very low. And, you know, right now you need to focus on high margin things over anything else. Obviously it's nice, and, you know, we love our partners at Allergan and Mercier, who have been setting up, you know, stores where, you know, their patients can go online and buy some of their products. But obviously, you know, the margins on that are low. The overall volume, unless you already have your practice trained, you know, your patients trained within your practice to buy from you in that manner, you know, it's not going to move the needle enough for you. So really focus on the things that bring profit in for your practice, and really embrace and take care of your high value patients. I think that's really the long and the short of it.
Excellent. I appreciate it, guys. People may be wondering why we're rotating cams. GoToWebinar limits us to 6 video cameras at a time. I'm going to ask that the marketing companies turn their cameras off, and we'll just have some closing words from Bill and Karen if you guys want to turn your cameras back on. And we'll also be following up with you guys with an email. I'll include all of the panelists' email addresses. And if you want to connect with any of them, we also have a survey here at the end. Just want to get your feedback. What would you like to hear more about? If you'd like to hear from any of the panelists that were on today's presentation, there's a little offer from OptiCall. If you guys want a free lead conversion assessment, It's just an opportunity to get a barometer on what's happening at your practice. We'll record calls and place contact forms to your website to see what the response time is like and to see if it's consistent. So, Karen, do you have any closing words that you'd like to make? Oh, you're on mute.
Your mic.
I feel like I was misquoted because I am not the queen of discounting, but I don't think you have the equivalent of a temperature to assess what the patient's mindset is in terms of what they're going to say once they get with the patient coordinator. My point is strategic pricing and then tactical discussions with your staff. Really important. I would say that if you set a half a day aside, 2 half days to do that, you will enjoy an amazing return.
Awesome. Somebody asked what was the care credit promotion? It's called a stimulus plan, right?
It's a special offer, and you will get the 12-month rate for an 18-month deal. Would you write that down? You're going to get the 12-month rate for an 18-month financing. And that 18 months is going to, I think, give many people the feeling that they'll be in the clear, right? 18 months from now, we should be post-vaccine. So that's a plus. But the major thing is you need the custom link because that lets you see who applied and how much they were approved for. That is an incredibly, if you had people do that before they came in, you would know not to suggest that procedure. You would suggest something interim that was probably more likely in the budget.
Yeah, and just like we try to stay neutral, OptiCall, we often say we're Switzerland. That's why we brought in a lot of marketing partners. They generate the leads and we convert them. We try to stay neutral with, we definitely work with Care Credit. They're a great company. We work with Alpion and Pretty Sky, and they're all offering special financing programs. So we encourage you to reach out to your provider and stay tuned. We kind of have an idea on doing another presentation and bringing in all those groups to talk about their
I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that. Bill, do you have any closing statements you'd like to make before we wrap it up here?
I just want to say thank you to all the panelists. It's been fantastic working with everybody over the past week and putting this together and the ideas and thoughts. And thank you also to all of the people that attended the webinar. I know these are tough times. We're all trying to make our businesses work, ours included. And we're here to help in any way that we can. We appreciate it.
I do have one question I'd say for you, actually. So everyone's been offering telemedicine, online consults. What are you doing that is different and that has been working? Because I know we've got that texting service that we've rolled out that might be worth mentioning.
Is that Mike? Yeah, that question is for me. Yeah, it's really interesting because, we get a chance to actually see and measure how many phone calls have been coming in and how many web inquiries have been coming in over the past few weeks since this occurred. And last week, we did a measurement of March versus April. And what we found is that April had fewer inquiries come in, but we actually booked more appointments. So conversions were higher. And a lot of that has to do with having the ability to do virtual consultations. People like that kind of stuff. They want to do stuff like that. And it was very easy to take these inquiries. And in fact, what we were doing with some of the practices is using a texting program to reach out to people who have inquired and bringing them back into a virtual consultation. It was much easier to convert them into that rather than an in-office from their original inquiry. So there are definitely things that we can do.
The texting program, we've basically been texting. We've got a campaign where we're texting people that didn't convert during their consultation. And we've had success with that, where they're opting in and they kind of queues them up for the virtual consult. So let us know if you're interested in hearing about that. One more thing.
Can I just put in one plug for you guys?
Sure.
We contacted 25 practices in April via the web. And we did it on Friday on purpose. And I will tell you that 15 of those people still have not replied. So when we hear all these great marketing ideas and and advertise, you've got to have somebody with a mitt to catch when the ball comes. And I've got to say this, Friday-itis, guaranteed you will not hear. It
We
gets
call that
lost
fumbling the ball
weekend
with goal
and on
line.
Monday. So if
It's a
you
great
could
point.
help.
We appreciate that, Karen. Thank you.
Karen, if you're the owner, you should probably be copied on your leads too, you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, somebody asked about HIPAA compliance when it came to virtual consultations. I know Dr. Mulholland mentioned doxy.me, drawing a blank on the other one.
Most of your practice management software systems, all the big names in plastic surgery, offer a HIPAA compliant consult module.
Yeah, and it's
Great.
funny, some practices were asking about the virtual consults, like things are going back to normal, and we think this is here to stay. Like, isn't a virtual consult better than a no-show or a cancellation or somebody that didn't convert? So we really encourage that practices keep those in their
Dylan,
in
just
their
real
offerings.
quick.
Like, he's coming back in. We're actually about to close this out. Did you
No,
guys
I know,
have-
but from a HIPAA perspective, my background in law and I did HIPAA stuff before I was a marketer. So they've relaxed some of those standards right now, which is awesome for everybody. And I think people are seeing the benefits that telemedicine has. And it's great to be working with providers. There's a lot of them now that are doing obviously the virtual consults and things like that. Most of them are compliant. And the level that you need to reach in order to get to compliance is actually relatively low. That bar is going to be relatively low. So make sure that when you're going kind of through that process and you're looking for something into the future, the privacy is not usually the biggest deal. It's usually making sure that you have access to it 24/7. So like we ran into a problem with a practice that could only access their virtual consults while in the office. You need to make sure you can still do it home, in the office, at home, 24/7 on the weekends and things like that. But I think that from a privacy HIPAA compliance standpoint, most of the ones out there, and you absolutely 100% should be rolling out with this for the long term. It's really going to affect your practice.
Thanks, Sam. Keith, Tom, did you guys chime in because you had something to say? Or
I was just gonna say there's a couple other platforms out there. Zwivel is another platform out there. Their docs are using it. It was originated by Dr. Gary Breslow in Jersey, and I have a couple customers who have had a lot of success. And again, the main goal of that is really to have the patient go through this process, answer questions, talk about the areas of interest. And again, they're utilizing this as a filter. I've been saying this over and over again. Your time is so valuable right now. To be able to utilize this tool to filter to get to the patients that you want. I think there's another one called Simplast as well, which I've heard about. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Really good.
yeah, they had a webinar the other day.
Doxa.me or .me or whatever it is, Doxami or that one. I think that the big key is obviously whether you're prescribing on it. Again, it's not as, if you're not prescribing medicine, that's one thing. If you're using it as a filter, those laws are really relaxed, and I think we need not really be too concerned about HIPAA as long as the privacy's being contained and you're not passing that information or somebody's hacking into your consult, which would be the concern. But even if that happened, that's obviously a malicious person who's attacking you. It's not something that you're specifically doing. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Appreciate everybody's time. We'll be sending out a follow-up. Let us know how we can help you, and best wishes. Everybody stay safe and healthy. You guys have a great day. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks,
Take
Dylan.
care.
Thanks, Bill.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.